Right, and I'm here with Brendan Gilliams, our continuing education coordinator.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. We've got some fantastic representatives from FSU with us today to teach us some amazing things. So with no further ado, let's turn things over to Renaine and Jesse.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Renaine Julian.
And I'm Dr. Jesse Klein.
I'm the Associate Director for the Science Libraries. Let me go ahead and advance my slides since we're live now. I'm the Associate Director for the Science Libraries, but I'm a recovering data librarian, and I've sort of worked in the realm of open data and open science for a while.
And I'm the Social Sciences Research and Data Librarian, and I come from a background of doing academic research and using and working with lots of different types of data. So happy to be here.
Yeah. So we are going to cover a lot of content today. And so I want to encourage you to not try to write down everything we're going to say and to just sort of go along for the ride, because we have tons of links and tons of resources for you. And before we get started, I also want to apologize for my voice. I'm, excuse me, just getting over a little bit of a cold, so I did want to apologize for that. But we're going to start by discussing and defining data and open data, and we're going to move quickly into open data policies. And we're going to discuss those things to sort of frame a talk around getting started in public libraries with open data. We'll discuss applications, ways to sort of use open data to make data-driven decisions, to pass those resources along to patrons, and use data as a research object, if that makes sense. And we'll end by blue skying it and talking about future opportunities. We also have some slide breaks worked in, or question breaks. So if you have questions, feel free to just put them in the chat box, and we're going to stop about 2 or 3 times during this presentation and answer those questions. So what is data? Before we can have a discussion on open data, we have to sort of come to an agreement on what data is. And rather than, a lot of people want to argue about what is and what is not data, but I like to focus on what data does. So data are outputs of research, which are inputs to scholarly publications and inputs to subsequent learning and sharing. Data is sort of those bits and bytes and those foundational pieces of information that sort of create scholarship. And open data is sort of a very nebulous thing to define, and there are a lot of different definitions. But the one that from the Open Knowledge Foundation is probably the best one that I've found. And open data is things that can be used freely, redistributed by anyone, and it has the attribution to share and share alike, and that's for any use. So that's for commercial and non-commercial use is what makes data truly open. But everyone must be able to use, reuse, and distribute data, or else it's not open. So it not only has it got to be free, but it's also got to be openly available. So if a data set is a printed Excel spreadsheet and it's locked behind a filing cabinet, and you have to ask 5 or 6 people in order to get a hold of it, not exactly open. And so I sort of created this diagram to sort of give you sort of a versus thing on what is open and what is not open, right? So non-open data is not available on the web. Sort of data available on the internet is sort of a prerequisite for open data. Open data is free to download and use, but non-open data requires some sort of paywall. You can also, openness has to do with different file formats. So proprietary files are not as open as standard non-proprietary file formats. Some examples of that is if you're working on an Excel spreadsheet, it will save as a .xls spreadsheet and has multiple workbooks, and that's proprietary. So if you were to move that Excel workbook into an Open Sheets or Google Sheets or something like that, you would have format errors. So in order to make your data truly open, you want to put it in non-proprietary formats like a .txt file or a CSV file or PDF. And lastly, copyright has a lot to do with open data. You can see I wrote CC by non-commercial as open data, but like I said earlier, that's not actually truly open data, because open data would also allow for commercial use in addition. whereas non-open data is all rights reserved. So openness sort of operates on a spectrum, and it's not really a data is or isn't open. It's more about how open is data. And the same goes for copyright. We have on the non-open spectrum of things, we have all rights reserved, like what you see on a television, like what you see on like the FBI warning before you watch a movie, right? You can't reuse any of this unless you have explicit permission. And then we have sort of that Creative Commons range of open data that goes anywhere from you can make a copy as long as you cite it, all the way over to commercial reuse. And then true open data is data that's in the public domain that can be used without any permissions and not contacting any author. And so now I'm going to sort of segue into discussing some open data policies. And we're going to show you a lot of different ones. This is an executive order that talks about open data in government for government documents. So it says that agencies will implement the requirements of an open data policy and sort of participate in transparent government by making openness by default. And another open data policy is an executive order that was issued by Dr. John Holdren, who was the former director of the Office of Science and Technology Policy. This is an office of the White House, and in 2013, Dr. Holdren issued a memo that said all funding agencies with a budget of research expenditure of $100 million or more had to make plans for all the research data and publications for funded studies publicly available. What that means is that if me as a researcher got a National Science Foundation grant, I would have to make all of the data that I used on my project and all of the publications and write-ups that I did during that project publicly available on the web, not behind a paywall for anyone to use. Well, this is a problem for a lot of scientists because there isn't really any infrastructure that exists to make things open. So every single funding agency sort of interpreted that in their own way. And that resulted in different data management plans for every single agency. And moreover, recently, there have been a push by private funders, such as the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, to require these data management plans. So that's a very long way of saying, in short, at some point, all of the data that is being produced by the research that's funded through any of these organizations is going to be made publicly available. And even more data acts. This one is the Digital Accountability and Transparency Act of 2014. It was actually the nation's first open data law. And this required the Treasury Department and the White House OMB to establish government-wide data standards for information that the agencies report. And that all of this data that is standardized had to be published and accessed, made freely available to download. So that is sort of an overview of the landscape of what is data and some of the open data policies. But right now I'm going to turn it over to Jessie so that she can talk about some of the benefits and success stories around open data.
And just to take a break here, if anybody has any questions about some of these policies or the background, that we have in the U.S. around open data, we can go ahead and take a minute to answer those questions if anybody has them. Okay, well, we can always come back to this. If you have questions later on, we'll be taking another break around slide 19. So let's go ahead and get into the benefits of using open data. So we've talked about how open data is on a spectrum and some of the policies that have created a infrastructure and a call to researchers around the country and to government agencies for contributing to the open data landscape. And so why is this important? Well, this open data movement is really important for helping evidence-based decision making at all levels of government. And when you have a lot of data on a city or a county, a state, or throughout the nation, that could really help different government agencies, nonprofits, schools, civic organizations, etc., then that data should be transparent for those decisions to be made. And so this is really where the effort is going into. So the openness of this data reduces that friction, increases the ability of people to use that data, and it allows for greater transparency. Also, people who are doing research using open data, this is another part of that transparency piece, not just in government, but also in the research field and in academia, where other people can use that data and reproduce those results to see if they are accurate or if the effect size was accurate. And so there's a little bit of a checks and balances that come along with everyone being able to have access to that data. Also, increased discovery and access to data and the related information is important, since it's really important for us to be a more data literate society, and that comes with having access and the ability to discover data, which traditionally is stuck behind paywalls. So accelerated discovery, advancement of scientific discoveries. If everyone has access to the data, then you have more people putting out research questions and research and methods to tackle some more of our social problems in a quicker fashion than maybe they usually would. And it's empowering. If we're not just contributing to governments and nonprofits' ability to have evidence-based decision-making, we are also giving individuals who are using the internet, people who are accessing the news, to check those statistics and check those resources. And it gives us a tool for evaluating the information that we receive on a daily basis. So there are a lot of success stories around open data. There are a lot of folks who have taken this and ran with it, and some of these examples, you can click out to any of these if you'd like, but the Global Open Data Index. So here in the US we have data.gov, and that is our open data source for a lot of different variables of data being collected in the United States. And so around the world, governments have decided to follow and also preempt our decision to do this. And so for the examples here, India, Australia, the UK, France, Taiwan, these are some websites that collect those different they collect different types of data on the elections and voting, land ownership, water quality, pollution, the environment. They have maps and cartographical resources. You can download geographic information system files so that you can make maps and pair it with different data pieces. And so we have the model that's been mandated in the United States, but you can see a lot of governments around the world doing the same thing, which also makes it easier for comparative research. The Global Open Data for our agriculture and nutrition, they are a group that are very interested in using open data on agriculture and nutrition to help the world make more innovative and sustainable choices around food policy. And their position is, if we're going to feed over 9 million people by 2050, then having open data allows us to make decisions based on facts and evidence. The Climate Data Initiative and the Climate Resilience Toolkit are two examples that came out of the Data Act of 2014. So this is allowing an acceleration into the development, deployment of products, tools, and applications powered by data collected by the U.S. Department of Energy, different environmental groups, and the Weather Bureau, and all of these groups coming together and saying, okay, here's the data on the impact of climate change, and also communities in the north that are really struggling with this in the Arctic and also in Alaska, and these areas. here's some data to help make better decisions for your communities. The U.S. Department of Energy, they are the most well-represented group on data.gov. They have over 2,300 data sets in its catalog, and part of that is access to the State Energy Data System, or SEDS, and that provides energy statistics by state, and it has stuff on energy production, consumption, prices, expenditures, broken down by source. They have, fossil fuels, and they have hydroelectric, and they have solar, and a lot of different sources of energy, how it's being used, how much it costs, and what the effect is on water and air pollution. The National Priorities Project, this is another open data source success story. So this is about the federal budget, and it also brings together that information with what is the government putting money towards, what are their funding priorities. And this project brings together some of those budget lines that are promoting certain types of industry or promoting certain types of social policy. Something that's really important, particularly to public libraries and counties and in towns, are public transit, especially since most public libraries are on a lot of public transit routes. Making evidence-based decisions about how to get people to the libraries or how to make them more accessible to the public. There's a lot of tools that have been created around public transit data. So looking at open data for transit, metro buses and subways and trains, these have been collected for a very long time. So if you look at some of the original open data sets, a lot of them will be from this area of data collection. Now, something of particular interest to, I think, a lot of you will be the 7 and 8 here listed. And so the Chattanooga Public Library and the Chapel Hill Public Library, they both created data portals, so open data portals, and they have stakeholders in the communities, either law enforcement, public safety, the health department, local government, the Chamber of Commerce, and all of these groups together have decided to put this open community data into these data portals so that citizens can access the data, can see what's going on in their community, and they can be more informed, which when you increase information literacy, you also increase feelings of efficacy. And so if you have your citizens feeling more efficacious, they're more likely to participate, they're more likely to vote, and they're more likely to show up to community events. And so these portals created in these two cities, if you follow the links, it'll bring you to the portal so you can see what they look like. And they even put out reports kind of summarizing the data to make it a little bit more accessible to folks that maybe have a hard time navigating some of the data sets that are on there. So we have a lot of sources for open data, and this is usually, the next question. Okay, this is all wonderful. How do we find it? How do we use it? And because a lot of what we've just talked about has to do with local, state, and federal governments, it's good to know that you can go to, data.gov, find things at the federal level. All states, because of these federally mandated open access laws, you will also find open data initiatives at the state level. Usually these are listed on the state government website. And you can also, through the Freedom of Information Act, you can request things that aren't made publicly available online, but that are available in print. And so we can find data on government sources. We can go and request government data that's publicly accessible. We can also go into data repositories, and we can look at international organizations that publish their data as well. And so for data repositories, all of these that are on the page here, you can click and it'll bring you out to the website. And so the first one, which is interesting, because I know a lot of folks get questions about government policy, public policy, legal cases, laws, have they been passed, what stage in the process are they? way. And so the up here on the right, the federal documents tracker, this tracking documents, they will tell you, okay, this bill has been introduced, here's who it was introduced by, here's the percentage that it's likely going to be passed, and it gives you all of the information so you can really stay informed from the time a bill is being proposed to the point where it's being deliberated, whether or not it's been voted on, and then finally whether or not it's been enacted and signed into law. Some folks who are interested in more specific, subject-specific areas, you might find the ARDA of interest. This is the Association of Religion Data Archives. They have the largest data repository for religion and religious-based data sets. Similarly, the National Archive of Criminal Justice Data, they have a very large repository that pulls together criminal justice data from the Bureau of Prisons, from the National Bureau of Justice Statistics, from the FBI, the CIA, and the Department of Defense, Department of State. And so you can find a lot of really rich data sets in there. World Bank, international, international financing, funds, humanitarian aid, etc. The European Data Portal is really similar to all the data.govs, but it talks about the European Union, right? So it's kind of a collection of data from all throughout the European Union countries. And then lastly, these two over here that say ICPSR, that is the Inter-University Consortium for Political and Social Research. And the main website usually has to have some kind of member institution. But the open ICPSR has data sets for all kinds of research questions available freely and openly to the public. Now, the next few slides, I'm not necessarily going to go into detail. These are meant to be resource slides for you, and these are open data tools that you can continue to refer back to as you go through them on your own. If you would like more details on how to use them, or if you would like to, have some kind of a screen chat with me or Renaine about this so that you can learn how to use these tools, please feel free to email us anytime. But in these resource slides, I've included stuff around reference managers that are free and open to use, so you can collect citations on books and articles. Metadata tools, these are for standardizing the language that we use for data, which is really important for making sure that we can all effectively use and understand data. So if you have a project that has very particular discipline-specific language, then if someone else comes in to try and work on that or with that data, it can be very inaccessible. So metadata decisions from the beginning are important. And so understanding how metadata works, creating different types of languages for standardizing your data, etc. Data management and processing tools. So as you all start to play around with some open data sets, you're going to notice that they're going to come in, large spreadsheets, or they're going to be large text documents, and sometimes they can be difficult to manage, 80 to 100,000 rows of information in a Google sheet or something like this. And so managing that data, how do you look at it so that you can use it and understand it? These are some examples of different tools that you can use to develop data management plans, to look at data management best practices. Now, data analysis tools. So let's say you get all the way through that. You've looked at the the research that's been done. You find an open data set. You figured out how to read it. All the metadata is in line. You look at the data and it makes sense. You've cleaned it and that's all organized. What do you do with it next? And so these data analysis tools. There's a lot of proprietary data analysis tools, and so these are some of the free versions and free open source tools that are available for doing data analysis. And so definitely take a look through through some of these. They deal with statistical analysis. Some of them deal with data mining, social media research, and geographical research. And lastly, there's a lot of really great movement and interest in data visualization. You see infographics are really popular in government reports, and we all want to be able to visualize our data to tell a story about the value of our organization. And so data visualization tools, luckily, are available for free, and there's some really great options here. Tableau is one of the more popular data visualization tools nowadays, and they do have a public version, and so it would be a download, but you can have live dashboards to show your data to the community, etc. And then you can create infograms and charts and things that would really bring some of your data storytelling to life. So here we're going to take another break for questions. I see that there's some questions going on in the chat box. I'm not really sure what we're talking about here. If anyone could clarify, that would be great.
Sure, yeah, we're just going to go through the questions real fast and see if we can summarize some of those. And then I'm going to jump on and talk about some open access data. Let's see. And it looks like somebody was just typing an email into the chat box. It doesn't not look like a question towards us. Looks like a typo.
So this is talking about data visualization tools in public workforce systems.
So the question is, how does public workforce system utilize these data visualization tools? There's a lot of utility for data visualization tools. You could use them to display statistics and data about your library, especially with a tool like Tableau Public that is free and pretty easy to use and allows you to publish your data visualizations on the web very quickly. Particularly for library directors, a lot of times they need statistics and numbers to present to the city or county commission, and these types of tools empower those people, empower library leaders to sort of convey that information in a really easy to use or easy to understand way, especially since a lot of elected officials that make decisions aren't really familiar with a lot of the services and things that libraries offer.
So let's see, remember all the page audits, big question.
Right, and so it says something about the one comment we have about public workforce system with library registration audit. I will remind you all that we're not public librarians, so I am not aware of a patron public service audit from the 90s to the 2000s. So
well, I will comment on that briefly, and it seems that this is, you know, definitely before the time of open data, and surely before the time that a lot of these documents were being digitized. And so I would recommend doing a Freedom of Information Act request for public records from that time. It depends on who was doing the audit. If this was at the county, the state, or the federal level, you might be able to find some information there. And in particular for libraries, library workforce systems doing data visualization, like Renaine was saying, we have a lot of interesting data in library circulation statistics. We have how many people are coming in, how many people are using our library cards and resources. And so all of those might be interesting for conveying your value and story to the public. And so if you have Tableau Public, if you have a dashboard where you can put those data pieces together and show those to the public, that can be a really great marketing tool. And so we have a question up here from...
Yeah, Jamie's question. Jamie said that you met Susan Brown at PLA, and she had a big question about understanding how the public is using this information. Yes, Jamie mentioned that it's nice to have open data, but if the public doesn't understand how to use it, then there's still an access issue. And your question is, how can we help the public understand this information? That's a good question. I'm actually going to challenge you all to think about that yourselves, right? Because as academics, Jesse and I, we work with researchers to make this data open, and we work to understand this landscape. But part of the inspiration we got behind, putting together a webinar like this is that we don't think that the data is being used. We think that there's a lot of great information out there and tools that exist, and there's a disconnect between the public and the open data. That's sort of part of why we're here today.
And so to build on that question about how do we help the public use the data, there is a significant amount of research and public applications for data literacy and data information literacy. And so similar to how we all use information literacy to, show our patrons and users how to use databases or how to navigate and evaluate our resources, you can do the same kind of work with data. So showing them some of the resources that we've shown you here today. If you go on to data.gov and download an Excel sheet, maybe look into it, download it yourself, take a look at it, see how hard it is to navigate perhaps, and then you might be able to, better demonstrate that to your patrons. And of course, like I said, we're here to help you work through some of those and find ways to apply it locally if you'd like.
Fantastic. So we're going to go ahead and move on, and we're going to talk about open access journals. In addition to open data repositories, which I'm going to talk about in a second, there are also journals that have loads of data sets and summary statistics, and those are freely available. The best way to find open access journals, and these are academic and scholarly journals, is to visit the Directory of Open Access Journals, DOAJ. And they index, high quality peer-reviewed studies that are free to the public to consume. So you don't have to worry about hitting any paywalls or anything like that. In addition to DOAJ, and these resources are listed in there, there are very large open journal portals such as PubMed that has over 28 million citations for biomedical research and life sciences freely available online. The same with Sage Open and many, many other sources. So it's important to understand that you can find open data in these open access journals as well. The best way, a lot of you all will need to use government data in order to do two things, right? Part of it is you'll utilize this government data to make your own decisions. So you'll use this data to determine whether or not you're going to build a branch library somewhere, or what types of services and outreach programs you're going to have. But also you want to be able to show patrons these data sources so that they can use them in their own research and in answering their own questions. And there's three sort of tiers of government. The top tier is the federal government, and those are tools like the census, the US Census, data that's created by large organizations such as the Department of Education and the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The Bureau of Labor Statistics has a lot of great data related to sort of unemployment and job outlooks and things of that nature. In the state of Florida, we actually have a lot of open data resources that are useful. One of them is the the National Historical Geographic Information System, which is NHGIS, and it's actually a clearinghouse for GIS data. So if you're working with a patron and they need to find like shape files for like property boundaries, or they want to find where all the fire hydrants are located in a particular city, a lot of that information actually exists, and it's pretty relatively easy to find. And finally, there's local governments, right? So this is the city or the county you work in. And a lot of that data is sporadic on how available it is. So, right, Jesse alluded to cities like Chicago that have tons of information available, and they even have an open data portal that folks can use. But in smaller communities, that information isn't readily available. And so what I have found as a reference librarian and helping people do research is that a lot of times I just have to pick up the phone and call the planning office, or call the county commission office or something like that, and actually see if the data set exists. Because what I have found is that public officials are sympathetic to librarians, and they are willing to help us wrangle data sets whenever we need it. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about data repositories, because these are very these are very rich sources of research data that you can use for your own decision making, as well as passing on to patrons. And the first one is what we call a research repository, which is a fancy way of saying a project website. And so this is like a landing page that a lab or a research department will have that has all the data sets they used in a project. Those are pretty difficult to identify and find, but what's mostly, or another source of repository is a domain or subject-based repository. And these are large databases online where you can access the data that was used for particular studies. For example, the ICPSR database or repository that Jesse talked about houses a lot of social and behavioral data sets for many different geographies for the US, for particular states, and even other countries. And these things can be used by researchers and easily accessible and reanalyzed. And that's actually why they're on in those repositories, so that you can sort of push discovery forward by making data available. And the last is, or one of them is a national repository, which in the US is kind of like a concept. So data.gov does a really nice job of pooling together different data sources from the Census Bureau, Bureau of Labor Statistics, NOAA, but in itself is not a data repository. Now the UK Data Bank, which is a social science data repository in the UK, actually is a nationally funded national repository for social science data. And finally, institutional repository. Most universities that are large and research focused actually have repositories where they store data and research articles that are produced by their professors and their students, and you can access all this information for free. So I encourage you to sort of look at ones, if you're around here, you can look at Digital, which is Florida State's, but Florida Gulf Coast and the University of Florida and other universities also have their own repositories with all of this rich information that's freely available to use. Right, so what can you all do, right? What are some applications? We've shown you a lot of resources and a lot of things, but what can you do to sort of utilize those things? Well, the easiest sort of thing to point to is that you can help patrons find open data and encourage them, if they're trying to do research or investigate a particular aspect of society or research project, that you can help them find the data sets that help them do their own analysis and make their own decisions. You can become you can help local partners to publish open data sets from your own community. And the libraries can actually be publishers and champions of open data. As public librarians, you all are already trusted sources of information in your communities, so you can learn about local, state, and federal data and sort of understand those applications so that you can help your patrons and also make better decisions and data-driven decision-making. And so there are a lot of applications for public libraries to use this information, but the first step is sort of learning how to wrangle it and learning what is where. That's sort of the main challenge here. Public libraries are natural partners for local county governments. There are examples of in the Chicago Public Library, they have open data hackathons where they use the library space and invite people to actually come and solve local government problems using open data sets. Libraries are natural partners in those things because you already have those ties into the community. And sometimes you all have information from your own library, like statistics on visitors, computer usage, materials that are borrowed, and you can use this information and make it public to actually show the value of your library because I have a lot of friends who are public librarians, and one thing that seems pretty universal is that funds are tight, and you all have to advocate for your own resources sometimes, and you don't have a lot of fancy tools and gadgets to sort of put together those reports and documents. So it's really good to use the stuff that's openly available, the open data, but also the open data analysis and visualization tools that Jesse showed you. And so really the applications for public libraries are endless, but I am going to move it over to Jesse so that she can talk about some other applications for public libraries.
Okay, so if there are any questions so far about some of the resources we've gone over, we can talk about that. So how are students utilizing Florida State University libraries? So those are questions that really, that are very different for academic libraries compared to public libraries. And so the focus of this is really talking about open data projects for public libraries. A lot of the data that we have here at Florida State or at other academic libraries about courses, academic performance, and people's usage of the library are, behind federal laws, and they're mostly protected. So the types of data that we have here at the library about, yes, of course, students are studying here at Florida State University and are using the spaces, very often. But if let's see, is there a listing of public libraries that have open data portals? That's a great question, and I have not found such a list. Like you, I've heard of Chattanooga and Chapel Hill, but I did not know about Boston, which is great. And also, Chicago has one. We were just at a conference last week with the city of Chicago, and they're using data for a lot of really interesting public services. So I recommend checking them out. If I do find a list of those, then I will definitely let you know, Jamie. Okay, so we've talked about some of the applications, how we could how we could apply these concepts in public libraries kind of conceptually. And so through some examples, because I know that a lot of us were, we can think about it conceptually, but we want to know how we can actually do this where we are. And so I found some kind of groupings of examples for that. And the first part really is about library planning, programming, and assessment, which I know is really important for all kinds of libraries, for vying for funding at the local, state levels, for getting technology grants, for getting any type of grants really to continue improving programming and collection. So having data that you collect internally, or having open data from other libraries that are in similar communities as yours, using those to leverage your story, to make data-driven decision-making, applying for that grant or applying for the funding. Data can definitely help with those efforts. And community engagement, and how do you turn these into opportunities to help the community become more data literate, and also to engage them with the with data and with the possibilities of using data. So having workshops similar to the workshops that you all might be having or hosting on information literacy. I know fake news workshops and how to evaluate sources on social media are very popular right now. So if you took a similar model and talked about data or research, or how to evaluate a statistic in a news article, right? A lot of people will take a statistic in a news article for granted, and if it's a number or a percentage or a rate, we tend to give it a good amount of authority without necessarily thinking about how many people were asked, this survey question to get this statistic, or who funded the organization that conducted the survey where the statistic was, collected from. And so having those types of workshops are definitely a great way to get started. There are a lot of opportunities for celebrating data and open data, which is the first part in getting really people interested or knowledgeable about the presence of open data. So if you look at these national and international events like Open Data Day, Love Data Week, International Open Data Day, and you bring some of that programming, which a lot of the advertising and promotional materials for those events are open source. That's kind of the point, right? So they're open source. You can put them on your website. You can get the materials to use at a workshop. And that gets people aware that this is even a thing. And really that will get people more interested. Some practical things to engage the community on. Again, this goes back to feelings of efficacy, feeling like you're actually making a difference with something that you're doing. Two of them, that's the hackathon and a Wikipedia edit-a-thon. These are, big group activities. We here at Florida State have had several hackathons. There are some resources in the footnotes and then also in the resources at the end that tell you how to plan a hackathon and how to conduct one. And so this is, you bring a group of people together with some kind of deliverable or some kind of project you want to create at the end of that event. And then Wikipedia edit-a-thons, we know that it's free to edit and contribute to Wikipedia, but we don't necessarily fact check everything, right? So it would be about going to a certain area of Wikipedia and editing it, fact checking it, putting additional references in, and doing that type of work collectively. Okay, so some of their other applications, and you can click through this on your own. I'm just going to kind of go through this quickly. The New York Public Library, they've created a New York City space-time directory, and this is a really awesome resource where you can go into a chronological timeline of New York City and click on a certain date or a certain month or year, and it'll collect all of the digitized materials that they have in their collection for that particular date. So looking at a street, looking at a picture of the street in contemporary times and also back in the 1900s, or looking at letters and documents and diaries from that area of the city. And so making that more accessible. Similarly, in the Newberry Library in Chicago, they pulled together online atlases and data from maps across the United States. And so you can look at the changes in the United States from the colonial era to today. And then DPLA, or the Digital Public Library of America. This is about trying to make accessible all of those collections that are in special collections, that are dealing with fragile or rare materials, and putting them out there for the public to use in a free format. So we've talked a little about information literacy and how that can be really, a really great portal for integrating some of these other types of literacy into your organizations. And it's important to remember that data literacy is really the end goal here. When we have information literacy, we're teaching people technical skills, we're learning and teaching others about how to read statistics and understand how things are being researched. The end goal is really that we are more informed and we're more literate in regards to data and research. And so as more organizations are making their data available, the need for data literacy is increasing, so that we can have a public that's engaging with the data, that's bringing the data to life for themselves, but also us facilitating them learning about open data. And so bringing data to life is the next piece here, and this is just some more examples of cool things that you all can do in your libraries. And you can create data literacy blogs. You can use the LibGuides or research guides system that you all have to put information up there about using open data. You can have data scavenger hunts, which I know that there are several public libraries that do these with databases, right? So how to go and find an article on a database. You can do something similar, using, oh, thank you, Jamie. Using data sites and using data.gov and saying, hey, what is the unemployment rate for 5 states in the United States, right? And go and find it. Or, how are 3 different countries in the world measuring energy, energy output or something like that. How to spot fake news, again, very popular right now, and that also contributes to information and data literacy. You can provide training that's maybe a little bit more technical in nature, and so this is an example of a course or a module that another library had done, Data 101, data visualization, literacy, and storytelling, so that's definitely adaptable. Citizen-made reports using local data. This is really great for continuing the conversation with your policymakers and with government officials in your community. So they don't usually see how the citizens view and use data, but if you have citizens making or patrons making some of these reports and giving them to the Chamber of Commerce or giving them to the County Commission, then that produces a dialogue, you know, that really bridges the community. Dear Data, and this is the top right image on this page. This is a really fun activity for kids. Data can be a difficult thing for kids and teenagers, you know, for young children and teenagers to really wrap their heads around. But if you tell them, hey, how many times, you know, did you go to the park in the last month? And those are going to be represented by dots. And you're going to put those dots in this configuration on this sheet of paper, and now you've visualized your data, right? Your data is how many times you went to the park in the last month. And so this is a fun way to help kids understand what personal data looks like and how to really bring that to life for them. The Memory Underground, this is a simulation where you, I mean, definitely for high schoolers, this would be a great activity where you share it with them. They put their big events in their life kind of in this, you know, this module, and then at the end of it, it creates a subway map of their life. And so that's another interesting way to have people visualize aspects of their personal lives. And then data zines. Zines are super popular with kids, and it's always been a very oppositional form of publication. But at the end of the day, you can create zines and put them in your collection. You can put them on display. And if you make them about open data, right, you can have a lot of folks putting information in there about open data sources, about data literacy, and then you can make them available to your other patrons. And that's, again, another way to continue that dialogue about data and data literacy. Now I'm going to switch it back over to Renaine, and we just have a couple of slides left, and here's Renaine.
Hi, everybody. So we sort of showed you a lot of stuff today. And I wanted to sort of wrap up by giving you some advice and some suggestions on moving forward with sort of getting started with open data. So, excuse me, the very first thing to do is to you know, look for open data portals that are local to you. Data.gov is a really great start. So if you go on that website, you can start listing things by state, county, things like that. But you could also just start punching in keywords and finding things that you're actually interested in. And that'll help you sort of, it'll help you have fun while you're learning and while you're getting to know these resources. Because, you know, the only way to really get started is to actually get your hands dirty and go in there and find things yourself. You know, like, so you could start with data that you're comfortable with, like library data. So data.gov has information from the Chicago Public Library. You could look at things like that. They give you inspiration to create some of your own data sets. And you can check out different data portals and things like that.
And to just jump in real fast about the library data, something else that's cool I didn't put on here is called the General Social Survey. That's GSS. And they have attitudinal and behavioral modules. They've been doing this survey since 1972, and all of their data is available online for the public. And they ask a lot of really cool questions about how often do you use libraries, how do you, how important do you view libraries in the community. So they have a lot of attitudinal questions about libraries that you might want to explore by state, right, for the state of Florida. That might be helpful as well.
Yeah, so yeah, the General Social Survey is always a really good one. And another way to get started sort of is to think internally and evaluate what sort of information about your library should be published as open data. Not only is it a good, a good exercise to think about what can be made open, but it's also a great way to immerse yourself in your own data and sort of get familiar with it. Start small with spreadsheets that you're used to working with, and sort of work your way up. So like we said, you can collect, analyze your own internal data. You can add open data things into your existing curriculum. So you can talk about, you can add like finding government data workshops into your programming, or you could even consider hosting a hackathon or some sort of open data event like that, where you challenge your patrons to sort of solve problems with open data and open information. There's lots of really cool ways of utilizing open data, but it really starts with sort of training yourself and sort of getting to know the resources that are out there. Some good places to start are like Data Camp and Coursera free online data science courses, which will actually teach you some programming and data analysis skills. And another place to, you can look at the U.S. Census Bureau, their training and workshops, but also all of their data sets. You can spend afternoons, and we do entire workshops that are only on the census data. And lastly, you can check out some of these repositories that we showed you, like ICPSR and other ones. And preceding all of these slides, we have tons of other resources. Everything we mentioned today, we have a link to.
And so one of my favorite scientists of all time, Sherlock Holmes, written by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who also happened to say there's nothing new under the sun, says a lot of things in his works about the importance of data. And this is one of my more favorite quotes by him, and that's, "I have no data yet. It is a capital mistake to theorize before one has data. Insensibly, one begins to twist facts to suit theories instead of theories to suit facts." And so we like to leave you with that, and to encourage you and your patrons to challenge yourselves and think more about how to integrate open data and data literacy into your libraries. And here's our information, and feel free to contact us.
Yeah, thank you for your attention today and the opportunity. Thank you for the opportunity to present about this stuff. And please don't be shy about reaching out. We're happy to jump in and work with you and show you how to use some more of these resources.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
We still have a couple minutes if you have some questions. Sorry, Brendan.
No worries. Thank you guys for coming and presenting for us today. This is going to be the first of several partnership webinars where we'll be connecting with FSU's libraries and their amazing staff for their data knowledge.
Thanks again, everyone. Have a great weekend.
And we got a question. Jamie says, has anyone heard about the MIT database partnerships
with public libraries?
No, I've never heard about that partnership. It doesn't surprise me with Dr. Borg being at the helm at MIT libraries. I'm sure that they're doing a lot of public involvement.
Yeah, so I'm looking it up right now. Thank you, Jamie, for sending the link for this. And okay, great. Supported by the Knight Foundation. They do wonderful work with libraries, by the way. I definitely recommend looking into their grants on, libraries in the 21st century. This is, okay, so it's a residency program, bringing them in to learn about media and data. That's fantastic. I'm going to look into this some more. That's a really great resource. And I did hear about and know about Scratch. So for those of you who are interested more in integrating some open source tools on coding and teaching particularly kids and teenagers how to do coding, MIT has a Scratch program. And so that's scratch.mit.edu. And you can do drag and drop coding, and it'll create simulations or animations or games for the kids, and they learn about how to code that way. It's pretty cool. So yeah, MIT is doing some great stuff. Thank you for sharing.
And we'll stay on to make sure any other questions get answered. Or for those of you that have to go and have things to do at 3, thank you for being on with us, and stay tuned. We'll let you know when the next webinar is going to be. But like I said, we'll stay on for a few more minutes.